Coming up on Tech News Weekly, Jason Howell and I, Mikah Sargent, have quite the security episode for you because, well, a lot is going wrong in the security area. First, we have Steve Gibson, yes, Security Now's own Steve Gibson, to talk about what's going on over with LastPass and the incident they recently reported on. Will we continue to use LastPass? Is Steve continuing to use LastPass? Should you continue to use LastPass? All those questions can be answered. Then the EFF's, the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Matthew Guariglia joins the show to talk about a policy making its way through the San Francisco City Council regarding the SFPD using robots armed with weapons. We round things out with more security stuff. First, Hive Social. They are closing the doors for a little while they get their security in a row because things are not great there. Jason Howell will have more about that. And then I round things out with Anker Eufy security cameras and how they may not be as encrypted and locked down as the company claims they are. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 262, recorded Thursday, December 1st, 2022.
This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Collide. You can meet your security goals and pass your audit without compromising on privacy. Visit collide.com/TNW to find out how. If you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag, including a t-shirt, just for activating a free trial.
And by ExpressVPN. You've given enough to your ISP this year. It's time for you to start taking. So take back your internet privacy today with a VPN rated #1 by TechRadar and Mashable. Visit expressvpn.com/TNW and get 3 extra months of ExpressVPN for free with a 1-year package.
And by IT Pro from ACI Learning. IT Pro TV is now IT Pro from ACI Learning. Join a community of IT learners who access more than 6,800 hours of IT skills and training courses to better themselves, their organizations, and their careers. Get 30% off when you sign up at itpro.tv. That URL is still the same, itpro.tv/TNW, and use code TNW30 at checkout. Hello, and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
I'm the other guy, Jason Howell. Every week we do this, except, of course, for last week because we had the American Thanksgiving holiday. So hopefully no one panicked. Hopefully you knew that was kind of going on, but that's why we didn't have a show last week, and I'm sorry.
Hopefully you found the eggs with candy inside of them. You lit the fireworks, and you went door to door asking for seeds to plant in the grounds for trees, because that's what Thanksgiving's all about, right?
I mean, that's what we should do. We should take every holiday and put it into one day so that we can work every other day. That's what we need to do.
Oh, God. No, I take it all back.
It's a horrible idea. Let's not do that. Well, we have a lot of security on the show today, starting with password managers and LastPass. We talk on this network and on the shows all the time about the importance of protecting your accounts with, a strong password. How do you manage that? Password managers are the best way to do that as far as I'm concerned. But any security-minded professional will tell you that no system is 100% tied down. And this week we're reminded of that. Some news that a LastPass security incident that actually happened back in August may have been more severe than what we were told back then. New information kind of points to that. Joining us to talk about LastPass in light of this recent news is none other than Steve Gibson from TWiT's Security Now podcast and grc.com. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Hey, guys. Great to be with you.
Yeah, good to have you back, sir. It's always good to get you on. So we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us about LastPass, because I produce behind the scenes. I do the live production of Security Now. So I've heard you talk many times about LastPass, password managers and everything. So we're going to kind of get into, in a little bit, we'll get into kind of how you're feeling, kind of the temperature of LastPass. But before we get there, Let's talk a little bit about this incident that happened back in August. Tell us a little bit about that. That's kind of like the preface for what we've learned about this week. So we should probably start there.
Yeah. So probably the most annoying thing about, any kind of a breach or security problem that any commercial company has is they're not going to tell you as much as you'd like to know. And this is the case about 100 days ago, toward the end of August, when there was this first intrusion that they reported. It was, don't worry, nothing to see here. Everybody's data is safe. We had a little problem. The bad guys were roaming around in our system for 4 days, but it wasn't the production system. It was some developer system. So, those are not connected. So everything's fine. Renew your subscription when it comes due.
And not to mention, I should just mention just real quick, last week was Black Friday. So we got a bunch of sales happening, and LastPass was in on that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like, oh, finally it's on sale. And they get in and then they see the news. But anyways, continue.
And so just so everyone knows where I stand, back, I don't even know how long ago it was, I reviewed for the Security Now podcast a bunch of password managers. I spoke to the guy who wrote LastPass, a guy by the name of Joe Segrist. He was more available to me just for whatever reason than I was. He was the only person at any of the password managers that I was able to speak to. He explained the way it worked. It all made sense. He provided me with not source code, but what he did was he was able to show me and provided a site where I could see that what he was describing to me was absolutely the truth. That is the way they were encrypting on the client side, so that they never got any of our passwords in the clear was proven to be the case. I selected LastPass, started talking about it, jumping up and down, saying this is the one to use. And I'm looking at the LastPass icon over here on Firefox. It's over here on Chrome. It's over on Edge. And it's still there today. It's the password manager I'm still using. They're no longer a TWiT sponsor. They were for a long time. They became a sponsor after, and maybe as a consequence of my endorsement of them. I chose them before they were a TWiT sponsor. And, since then they've wandered off, and Bitwarden is now a sponsor on the TWiT network. And that's an excellent password manager. I didn't switch because, LastPass is still working for me. And more for reasons of inertia than anything else. But so here's the point: is 100 days ago, at the end of August, that incident didn't make me switch. This incident, it makes me feel a little less comfortable, because one of the things I said back then was, well, if an employee screws up and learns their lesson, do you fire them because they screwed up? Or do you think, well, now we have a better employee because, they've learned their lesson? Well, I would have hoped that LastPass had learned their lesson from 90 days ago and wasn't going to have another problem. They're saying that some information that escaped then was used in order to, allow somebody to get back in. Well, that's uncomfortable. So I know there are people who left, 3 months ago. There will probably be people who leave now. I'm not going to leave, because and this is the thing that they keep stressing, and it's not incorrect, but of course it is for their benefit and it's promotional. And that is that what they're holding for each of their users is a blob, a pre-encrypted blob. At one point, we had a term on Security Now, PIE, PIE, pre-internet encryption. The idea, and also, of course, TNO, trust no one. The idea being that before this ever leaves your computer, it's so well encrypted that all that the cloud is doing, all LastPass, and it's very much like iCloud, although Apple is able to get into iCloud stuff, so the analogy is not as good there. LastPass is unable to decrypt the blob of passwords that they're holding for us. And the only reason there's a cloud at all is that we'd like our various devices to stay synchronized, right? If I'm using LastPass over on an iPhone, as I do, then if I create a new account and a website and add that information on my iPhone, I would like my Windows desktop to know about it when I'm using it next. So basically, they provide this blob of encrypted data to all of your various clients, and it's the client that then uses your master LastPass password to decrypt the blob. So and of course, I guess there's billing information that they have, or some other information that might be sensitive. I don't know. But anyway, so that's sort of where I stand and what's going on with them.
Is LastPass giving any sort of guidance to users right now? I know I got the email, and it's kind of the typical standard email, like, okay, hey, just want you to know something happened, but it's cool, we got it, and everything. I mean, is there anything that really users who want to stick around with LastPass can do in light of this? To be, there probably isn't. It's really all in LastPass hands at this point, right?
Right. On the client side, you put in your master password and it hashes it some insane number of times, like 1,000 times, I think it is. It's called PBKDF2, password-based key derivation function 2, because 1 wasn't good enough. So, and the user is actually able to change that number. There's a setting in your client where you could say, "Oh, I want to hash this 5,000 times." Anyway, so the point is, it just makes it like virtually impossible for even hardware assisted password brute forcing things to make any headway. So, it really is strong encryption. Since that password, your master password, never leaves you. LastPass doesn't have it. Hopefully nobody has it. Them having a problem holding on to their stuff at that end doesn't mean that you need to change anything at your end. So I agree with you. I would argue, I'm sure 90 days ago, they lost some customers. Now they're going to lose some customers. As a responsible public corporation, they must report breaches. They've engaged the services of Mandiant, they said in the letter that you and I both received, and the letter was full of, "Don't worry, everything's safe. No, user data." They did say that some customer information was exposed, but not the password blob, which totally makes sense.
Right.
If
that's
they're doing
the most important part.
Yeah,
well, potentially. Actually, now that I say that, that's incredibly important. But I also have a lot of other really important stuff stored in there. Potentially, people have their credit card numbers stored.
Oh,
in a secure
that's
note.
that's all part of the blob.
Okay, so that's part of the blob. We say
Yes.
password blob, but it's really like every kind of protected, encrypted data within that we store within there, not just passwords.
Correct, and I'm the same as you. It knows my credit cards for quickly filling out credit card forms and all that stuff. That is all in the single master blob, which is encrypted, and all they're getting is it looks actually like. You can't tell the difference between it and completely random noise. It's just noise bits, and there's nothing that they can do with it except hand it back to you when you are on a different machine, and then again you use your master password in order to decrypt it, and now it makes sense to your client here. I don't know what other information they have. If they do like recurring billing, then maybe they would have credit card information. If maybe they've got phone numbers. If they want to do second factor authentication stuff, there are things that they would have to interact with users. Other than that, I use a time-based second factor. I'm a big believer in that. That's the type of multi-factor that you want to use. So they would have the key that I use for that, but that wouldn't do anybody any good without my master password. So I'm not planning to leave. I guess that's my point. But I totally understand if people are like, well, let's go somewhere else because these guys don't seem competent. Yeah. And the problem is from the outside, we have no way of knowing. I don't know what their internal mechanisms are and protections, and if and they're not telling us because they don't have to. So they're just putting a good face on it and they're saying everything's fine here, nothing to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm super thrilled that we got you on to talk about this because this was really one of the main questions that I had, being behind the scenes at Security Now each and every week and hearing you talk about password managers and LastPass. When I saw this, I was like, oh, is this going to be the thing that makes Steve go, I think I'm going to move on to greener pastures? But it sounds like no, it sounds like you're sticking there. And I have to imagine you're going to be talking about this next week on Security Now as well. So anyone who wants, potentially we'll have more information by the time next Tuesday rolls around. And if so, I'm pretty sure Steve's going to be on the case. So, Steve, thank you so much for hopping onto this show for a change. Of course, people can follow your work on Security Now, but also grc.com is where people should go to check out SpinRite and all the other awesome things you're doing over there. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. My pleasure. See you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome to have you on. Let us take a quick break so I can tell you about a sponsor before we come back to talk about the SFPD arming its robots, or, well, wanting to arm its robots. More on that in a moment. But let's talk about Collide, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. If you're listening to this podcast right now, the odds are good that at some point you'll go through an audit like SOC 2 or ISO 27001. And when you do, you'll have to answer some tough questions about endpoint security. Questions like, do all your company laptops have their disks encrypted? Does everyone have the company's password manager installed? Do you have a system in place to monitor and maintain compliance throughout your cross-platform fleet? Even if you're confident that you will be able to answer all those questions, yes, the bigger question is, can you prove it to an auditor? If you're not quite sure how you'd go about proving compliance across your fleet of devices, well, then you need Collide. Collide is an endpoint security tool for Mac, for Windows, and Linux devices that does things that MDM simply can't and gives you the visibility you need to achieve and maintain compliance. And the best thing of all is that Collide doesn't resort to watching all of your employees with surveillance or locking down devices. Instead, it works with the end users to resolve issues and relies on their cooperation and informed consent. Collide's super cool. I think that every business that has employees should be using this tool because of the way that it involves the individuals, the employees that are working there. Not just the IT department that's, big and scary and saying you have to do this, you have to do this, but it actually treats people like the human beings they are, the intelligent human beings that they are, and tells them why it's important to follow these security guidelines. You can meet your security goals and pass your audit without compromising on privacy. Visit collide.com/TNW to find out how. And if you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag, including a t-shirt just for activating a free trial. That's KOLIDE.com/TNW. Thank you so much to Collide for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, now that we're back from the break, it is time to talk about the San Francisco Police Department making the decision, or trying at least to make the decision, to arm its robots with lethal methods. Joining us to talk about this is the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Matthew Guariglia. Thank you for joining us today, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before we kick things off and kind of dig into this specific story, I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about the EFF and kind of what the goal, the sort of mindset of the EFF is. I think that provides some context for our listeners who may not be familiar, although I know many of them are, and are probably very excited that you've joined us today.
Yeah, so the Electronic Frontier Foundation is now over 30 years old. It is a civil liberties organization comprised of activists, policy professionals, technologists, hackers, and lawyers And we do civil liberties in the digital world. We make sure that technology is on the side of freedom and not used as a tool by governments to suppress freedom. And that includes censorship, surveillance, issues of privacy, issues of free speech. And we are a membership-based organization. We have over 35,000 members around the world and would love if you would become a member.
Wonderful. Now, let's get into the details a little bit. Tell us about these potentially lethal SFPD robots. I'm curious what groups are involved in deciding whether the SFPD can use these robots with deadly force, and kind of where did this come from? Was this, a policy that was submitted? I'm curious about the kind of lead up to this, that it ended up making it to where it is right now, being voted on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so the landscape is a little complicated. I'll give you a rundown, which this kind of begins in 2016 when the Dallas Police Department found themselves in a very peculiar situation in that there was a shooter in a parking garage that police could not approach. And the kind of improvised ad hoc solution they came up with was taking one of these bomb diffusing or bomb carrying robots that now most large police departments in the country have, and strapping C4 to it and blowing up that shooter. So fast forward to now, the state of California has passed a law called AB 481, which requires police departments in California to pass through city councils usage policies for the technology they have. And in clarifying how they plan to use these bomb diffusing or bomb carrying robots, they wrote in a contingency that said that should the situation arise, they would like to be able to strap a bomb to these robots and use it to deploy deadly force. Of course, that is not quite what the policy says. The policy is a little bit more broad than that. And also, where it's coming to a vote now is in the Board of Supervisors. It has passed 8-3 on its first reading and needs to be passed through the Board of Supervisors one more time before it gets put officially into law.
Understood. And yeah, thank you for that, especially that sort of historical precedent and how that's involved. Now, I've kind of always thought of robots as these tools that police use to disarm bombs, or, even if it's not police, special forces use to disarm bombs. So what in the world is going on that now we maybe have robots being equipped with weapons of some sort to arm these robots? Are these robots specifically made for that purpose? Or is it a matter of looking at a robot and going, this could do 3 other things, including exploding someone that we want to get rid of?
Yeah, I think this is another story of if you give police these tools, they're going to use them and they're going to find more and more creative ways to use them. These robots specifically that the San Francisco Police Department already own, they're not built for blowing up people. But if you can strap a bomb to them, they might just do that. And so, yeah, this is part of a much longer process that I wish members of the Board of Supervisors would realize it has deep historical roots and has a lot of precedent behind it, where military equipment that comes to policing and police swear up and down they're only going to use them in the most extreme circumstances, often find ways of working their way into more commonplace and more everyday acts of policing.
And I think that kind of it leads into the next question that I have. Speaking specifically of the policy, is this a free pass for the SFPD to use armed robots at all times? I think some of the headlines out there would lead you to sort of imagine you're in San Francisco and there's walking down the street a couple of police officers, and they each have a little robot dog walking behind them that could potentially explode at any point. Tell us about the limitations as the FF sees it of the policy, and maybe the lack of limitations as well.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd just like to read a portion of the policy because I'd like to get it on the record. So it says robots will only be used as a deadly force option when 1, the risk of life to members of the public or officers is imminent, And 2, officers cannot subdue the threat after using alternative force options or de-escalation tactic options, or conclude that they will not be able to subdue the threat after evaluating alternative force options or de-escalation tactics. So what it says is they can only use it when risk of death is imminent for members of the public or officers. But it does not say that they have to exhaust alternatives. It says that they have exhausted alternatives or they have evaluated that those alternatives don't work. So to me, this or is doing a lot of work in that they don't actually have to try other tactics. They just have to think about other tactics and say, I don't think that's going to work, send in the robot. And the other important thing to note here is that they can only use it as deadly force when risk of life to members of the public or officers is imminent. This is also actually, it sounds specific, but it's pretty squishy language when you think about use of deadly force by officers just with guns, with other weapons, also has a very high threshold of supposedly when risk of threat to the lives of the officers is imminent or the public is imminent. And yet, all the time, we see unarmed people, innocent bystanders, get even friendly fire. Other officers get shot by officers with guns. So the idea that this could only be used when risk of life is imminent should not be something that we should rest our hats on.
Got it. So, I mean, this again leads perfectly into the next point here. Of course, there's been both criticism and support of the policy, according to the New York Times, even by the mayor who would sign this and make it, bring it into effect. So I think you've done a good job of kind of showing the EFF stance, but if you want to talk a little bit about what detractors have said about this specifically, why there is criticism against this in the wake of others who are, kind of trying to push it through.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty frustrating. People who are incredibly pro this measure have kind of just straight up dismissed any criticism as like being sensationalist. They say, that they conjure the straw man of saying that everybody concerned with this policy are have this fantastical vision of automated RoboCops, that they're going to be patrolling the street with guns in their arms. And they're just doing that in order to not take these criticisms seriously. Because I do not think it's sensationalist. I don't think it's far-fetched or fantastical to look at how police have used military equipment since 9/11, how often we see these like massive weapons, these drones, these other pieces of surveillance equipment that were swore that they would only use, in case of terrorist attack or in the most extreme circumstances, which have become everyday tools of policing. And to notice that it's usually the most marginalized groups in society that end up having to face this technology and these weapons most often. I do not think it's far-fetched to just question how and when this robot might end up on the street in situations other than, a sniper in a parking garage. I don't think it's wild to envision a scenario in which, somebody is in throes of a mental health crisis. They are standing in the middle of a street, and police, understanding this is kind of a standoff, bring a robot there just in case. I don't think that's a far-fetched scenario, especially in San Francisco.
Now, the policy was, as you mentioned, approved by the board on November 29th, a couple of days ago as we record this show, with an 8-3 vote. And it needs to be approved by the board and signed into law by the mayor, who the New York Times says is it has expressed support of this policy. So my question is, do you have any insight into how likely it is that this policy passes? Where does is the EFF going? It's probably going to go through, and now we're working through other means to kind of talk about this, or is there still opportunity that this doesn't end up making it as an official policy in San Francisco?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the community is angry about this. A lot of people are not buying this argument that it is far-fetched or fantasy to be concerned about these issues. And so, I still have hope that people, that some of the supervisors might actually listen to their constituents and not dismiss their concerns as fantasy. But I'm not sure, because we're just in a place right now in San Francisco where to deny police anything is to be smeared as being pro-crime in a way, or somehow naive, despite the fact that the San Francisco Police Department is not a totally innocent actor here historically. And so I think that hopefully we can rally the community. People are angry about this. But if it does pass, which I'm afraid to say that I think it might, given how dug in a lot of these supervisors sound, I'm pretty sure the policy will have to come under review again in 1 year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's interesting. And is that part of the law that you talked about earlier at the start of the interview?
Yeah, I think there might be a pretty regular revision process toward this policy where it has to come up for reanalysis.
Got it. Well, the last thing I'll ask you, is there a way for San Francisco folks who are watching this interview or who are aware of this policy going through to take any action, be it for or against this policy before the next vote comes into play and it's moved to the mayor's desk?
Yeah, if you live in San Francisco, I think now the best thing you can do is reach out to your supervisor and explain to them that, when you give police this kind of equipment and you rest on a handshake that they're not going to use it until the most extreme circumstances happen, that odds are you see it eventually, and it's not in the circumstances that they promised that they would deploy it under. So I think just reaching out to your supervisor and making it clear that, you are concerned about this issue and you really think that the policy is too vague, that it's too broad, and that this really is a policy that could end up hurting people.
Understood. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to join us today. I really appreciate that. If folks want to follow you online and check out the work that you're doing, that the EFF is doing, where should they go to do so?
Yeah, I mean, we have our blog, EFF.org, I think is one of the best sources for tech news and analysis and commentary you can get. So EFF.org, spend some time there, and you can follow me on Twitter at @Guariglia.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Love the EFF's work. That's why we have them on somewhat regularly. I love what they're doing. Up next, apparently I'm on this security beat this week. Actually, many things have been very security focused on this week's episode. We're going to talk a little bit about Hive Social. Maybe you've heard of that and reasons why it's in the news today, especially. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. That's right, another security product. See security all over the show. It's the season of giving. However, if you haven't been using ExpressVPN every time you've gone online this year, you've already given enough to your internet service provider. Because believe me, they're happy to take anytime you hop online. Every time you go online, in fact, without ExpressVPN, your provider can see and log every single website that you visit. And yes, that includes all the sites that you visit in incognito mode. Don't make that mistake. Don't make that misunderstanding. They're also legally allowed to sell all of your browsing activity to third-party advertisers. And as we know, that data is valuable. So they see massive profits, which means they've got a lot of incentive to do that. That's why I'm done giving to my internet service provider. I've given enough, and why I always go online with ExpressVPN. The app encrypts and reroutes 100% of my network data through their secure servers when I have ExpressVPN active. So, in other words, my provider can't see a single thing. Plus, it couldn't be easier to use. And it really is just dead simple. You simply fire up ExpressVPN on any of your devices. It's a single button. It's a single big button on the screen. You just tap that and boom. You're in, you're protected. It's pretty awesome. Unlike your internet service provider, ExpressVPN is committed to your privacy. That's what their business is all about. Their privacy policy has even been audited by third parties, so you can rest assured that your data is not being logged by anyone. I love ExpressVPN. I've got, we've got the router in the house. I've got the app on my phone. It's really everywhere. I've got it on my laptop. The laptop I'm using right now. It's pretty awesome stuff. And you really need to check it out for yourself and protect yourself and stop giving. You've given enough to your ISP this year. It's time for you to start taking. So take back your internet privacy today with the VPN rated #1 by TechRadar, as well as Mashable. Visit expressvpn.com/TNW. You'll get 3 extra months of ExpressVPN for free with a 1-year package. That's EXPRESS, expressvpn.com/TNW. And you can learn more by going there. So that's the URL to remember, expressvpn.com/TNW. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Weekly. All right. So let's see here. Mastodon. I've been spending some time on Mastodon. I've actually been really enjoying the kind of like smaller curated thing. I've also kind of explored some of the other things out there. I don't have an invite for Post. It's called Post, right? I don't have an invite for that yet. So I haven't been able to take some time with that one. Another social network that people have been checking out, because it really seems like that's where we're at right now. It's like this whole Twitter upheaval has people, if not leaving Twitter outright, kind of exploring their options. Like, well, what else is out there? Maybe there is, another service that I want to use. One of those is Hive Social. And so I thought I'd give a little bit of background on this, and then the reason that why we're talking about Hive today is a security incident, which I'll get to in a second. But this was originally created not in the last couple of months, because if you've heard about it, probably the majority of people that are on it right now have probably heard about it, sometime in the last few months with Twitter and all that going south. It was created in 2019 by 2 college students, kind of a mishmash of features from other networks. And I've hopped into Hive to try and, kind of like get a sense of like, how does this integrate with, my social media needs or my life or in some way. It's really interesting because it really does pull from everything. So it's got chronological order sorting. People will love that, of course. Photo sharing, video sharing, status updates. There's a music section. There's monetization of posts. So you can monetize some posts. Link sharing, of course. One of the things that I think people like about it is that it has no personalized algorithm. It's so interesting to see how this pendulum has shifted back the other way, because it used to all be about like, how do we personalize this so you only see the things you care about? And now people are like, no, I don't want that. I just want everything in order so that I know, it's not profiling me or whatever the case may be. The app has surpassed the 1 million user point in recent weeks, and of course, we can, I'm sure attribute that to the Musk Twitter drama as its fuel. And it has been, as other kind of similar social networks, like newer social networks especially, been in a good position to really capitalize on the rush that people, rush of people moving from Twitter to check out other things. So it was in a good position. And I think this story kind of goes in the direction of, yes, that's true. There are other services out there, but be very, very sure about the ones that you pick, because if they're new, they might not have the security practices in place that you hope that they do, right? Turns out that perhaps Hive Social rushed the product to market in order to kind of capitalize on the timing. As a result, it might be best to hold off on that hiving for a little bit. There's a German cybersecurity group, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, Zerforschung, I think, warned yesterday that the app is a security nightmare, as they put it. They issue the warning point blank. They say, quote, do not use Hive Social. They found a number of critical vulnerabilities. They disclosed all of these to Hive Social. One of them was the ability for attackers to, quote, access all data, including private posts, private messages, shared media, even deleted direct messages. This also includes private email addresses, phone numbers entered during login. So, I'm kind of looking at that. I'm like, well, that's really the kit and caboodle. I mean, that's pretty much everything that you don't want shared if someone logs in. You don't want anything shared, but that's the really valuable stuff. Also, attackers can edit other users' posts on the network. So, so yay, it has an edit feature, but it's an edit feature that other people can use on your post. Many specifics, as far as the details are concerned, were not shared. They did this for privacy reasons, to protect current Hive users. Like I said, they did share this information with Hive a while back. After a while, Hive, the company, said that they had addressed everything. When the researchers went in to check, they found many of the original issues still existed. So now they're kind of putting out the warning to everybody. And, of course, Hive is responding. Actually, what Hive has done is they initially issued a statement, to say, hey, we've heard about this. We take it very seriously. They decided to turn off the servers, they say, for a few days to address the problems, to, quote, come back faster and more stable. So that's what you would hope to see, is like, okay, let's stop the potential right now. They tweeted to say that there was no account compromised. So there was no actual account that they're talking about that, this payload was gained necessarily. Just that vulnerability existed. The server shutdown, they said, is preventative while they work. So yeah, just kind of a friendly reminder to, be careful in your rush to find new social networks. I don't know how you protect yourself against this without suddenly encountering it. Like who would have known? But have you used Hive Social at all? Have you checked it out for yourself, Mikah?
I have. And I think one of the good things about all of these different services kicking off all at once is that it's resulted in me not really committing necessarily to many or any of them. So I often, it's just been the case of me trying to claim my username so that somebody else doesn't get it and try to pretend to be me. Sure. And so I have not sent DMs or, sent anything that I thought would be encrypted or would be locked behind this or that or the other. And that has resulted then in me not having too much to worry about as far as this goes. But it doesn't stop, the concern that I have for the folks who have, made use of this technology or of the service, and who kind of did put their trust in it, because, I think that FOMO has kind of been a pretty powerful thing in all of this. And when you hear about people joining this platform and you think, oh, this is probably where people are jumping to, you quickly hop into that and you hope that, that's the place to go. So you may just assume, oh, everybody else is here and everybody else is using it, so it's probably fine. And I think that that's where we have to slow down a little bit and say, let me check on this first and make sure that it's okay for me to be using this, because I just because everybody else is hopping on it does not necessarily mean that it's safe.
Yeah. I guess the challenge there, though, like as I think about that, because I agree, you're right, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, is like slow down, like just be sure that there's a platform to step on. When you set your foot out in front of you, make sure that there's actually a step there, right? And you don't fall through. But at the same time, like how does any average user actually know with any certainty, like, okay, it's safe to step now? You know what I mean? Like there's no real indication like, okay, we're clear. We have no security holes. Yay. It's safe to come over. There is nothing like that. So we're always taking a risk. Anytime we check out any new app, new service, there's just no real way to be certain. So I don't know how someone does that due diligence.
You almost just have to wait. That ends up being the thing. Wait and see what happens. But then again, you wait and you don't get your username. So maybe...
Or lock in your username.
Lock in your username and then wait to make use of the service, which is kind of what I've been doing. Not necessarily because I thought that that's what I needed to do, but it's worked for me.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And I'm looking forward in the rundown and realizing this entire dang show is security focused. So
it is absolutely. We will come back to have even more security in a moment. But first, let us take a quick break so that I can tell you about our next sponsor who is bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. It's IT Pro from ACI Learning. That's right. IT Pro from ACI Learning is the new name. IT Pro TV is now IT Pro from ACI Learning. Whether you're new to the IT field or you're a seasoned professional, IT Pro's online IT training courses can change your life. They offer virtual learning solutions for everyone. And that means you're going to get quite a bit of goodies. First, you're going to get IT training videos, every vendor and skill you need to start or advance your IT career, done in a talk show format that keeps you interested and excited to learn. IT Pro has more than 6,800 hours of IT training, and courses are always up to date. Courses you can binge in 20 to 30-minute episodes. You'll also get interactive IT virtual labs. This is what sets IT Pro apart from the competition because you get hands-on learning via the hosted virtual labs. And this isn't just, a way to follow along with the process as you're watching the video. No, this is on-demand access to cloned virtual machine environments so that you can test your skills while you're learning in the exact setup and system that you would be using in the real world. IT certification practice tests are also part of the package. You can take and retake tests to ensure you're ready before you sit for the exam, as well as the online community that's gigantic, more than 220,000 IT learners. And that gives you the ability to learn when and where you want, on your desktop, on a tablet, maybe sitting on the couch watching an Apple TV, a mobile device, or Roku, wherever you want to learn. And, you don't need to pay for a university degree just to work in IT. Stay focused on tech. Stay focused on that goal with affordable certification-based learning that will get you the job. Check out IT Pro's top 12 courses for free during their December free weekend, which runs on December 10th and December 11th. So that's upcoming. Write that down. December 10th, December 11th. Check out IT Pro's top 12 courses for free. Each month, IT Pro offers free webinars you can watch live or on demand at your convenience, or you can watch on IT Pro's social channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. For December, they have All Things Cybersecurity with Josh Mason on December 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the 12 days of IT are back. Follow the IT Pro YouTube channel to see a new tech gift unboxed every day from November 28th through December 9th. To enter to win, go to go.itpro.tv/12 days. Go.itpro.tv/12 days. On December 9th, the winners will be announced live on YouTube. Tim Broom and Don Pizzette, the co-founders of IT Pro TV, said, "We created this because it is the IT training we wanted to have for ourselves. Engaging, conversational, affordable, and convenient. Get 30% off when you sign up at itpro.tv/TNW and use code TNW30. That's 30% off when you sign up at itpro.tv/TNW with the code TNW30. IT Pro. Build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey." Thanks so much to IT Pro from ACI Learning for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. Now we're back from the break for more security chat. This time, we're talking about Anker's Eufy cameras. So, full disclosure, I guess, or full mea culpa, maybe. I don't know. I just want to be clear. I have and recommend and continue to recommend Anker's charging products. Anker has loads and loads of different charging products that make it possible for you to charge your devices conveniently. These like multi-port chargers that can charge your iPhone, your iPad, and your Mac at the same time. Anker's charge line is fantastic. Anker also has a sort of subset company called Eufy. And with that is a bunch of smart home products. And some of those smart home products include security cameras. Now, Eufy has long been lauded in fact, I just am now realizing I'm looking on my desk and I've got a Eufy camera sitting there, not plugged in right now, but sitting there that whenever I go places, I plug it in. And it's long been lauded and recommended by the tech press as one of a few options for affordable but privacy forward and security forward devices that you can buy to add security cameras to your home. And that's because of Eufy's promise, its pledge, its guidelines that say that the way that they have it set up is that everything's stored locally on your devices. In fact, the Eufy camera I put a little SD card into, a micro SD card, because all of that video footage is stored there. It's end-to-end, and this is according to Eufy, end-to-end encrypted. So that means that it goes from the device straight to your phone without any ability to kind of communicate in between, and that the artificial intelligence that it uses for being able to track motion and give those motion detections or package detection, all of that is supposed to be on the device as well, meaning that it is not, going to any system online. It is not being sent to a server somewhere. And so this is one of many reasons why these cameras are often suggested as an option for people who are privacy focused. However, it appears that Eufy has been lying about what it is doing when it comes to the storage of video and the access of video on its platform. And I say lying not simply because of the fact that what some security researchers have found suggests that what they've said in their marketing and online and in their terms of service and all that stuff is untrue, but also The Verge has in the past communicated directly with Eufy in very simple questions saying, is this true, essentially? And they have categorically denied. In fact, I want to quote directly from the Verge article. Quote, when we asked Anker point blank to confirm or deny, when we asked Anker point blank to confirm or deny that being that the Eufy cameras are able to be accessed over the cloud, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, the company categorically denied it. Quote, I can confirm that it is not possible to start a stream and watch live footage using a third-party player such as VLC, Brett White, a senior PR manager at Anker, told me, the person from The Verge, via email. So, going back a little bit, I talked about how they say that everything's end-to-end encrypted, that this footage is stored locally, et cetera, et cetera. Paul Moore, at Paul_reviews on Twitter, showed that they were able to access a stream of the Eufy camera using the app VLC. So with a little bit of knowledge, because they purposely did not share how they did it, sorry, I got distracted there by the chat there for a second. Anyway, so they purposely did not share how they did it exactly for the purposes of people's security, and also because now there's going to be some legal proceedings. But they were able to just use VLC, type in a certain URL that was a direct access to the stream, and stream from the camera that was supposed to be end-to-end encrypted and not able to be accessed through any means other than what you had set up. The Verge was able to do this themselves. It's not clear that there's been no evidence that this has been exploited from bad actors at all, but who knows for sure. And the way that The Verge did it, and they of course don't go into detail, but they got the address that they needed to put into VLC by logging in with a username and password to their Eufy account. And then from there, they were able to get the encryption-free stream. So this, again, is a stream of the video that is not only not end-to-end encrypted, but isn't even encrypted. So it's not even a both ways kind of encryption in the first place. It's one-way encryption. And then this is where things go even further. Apparently, the way that they set up any kind of the URL for this stream that exists is using the serial number from the camera. And as is noted in this Verge article, serial numbers are numbers that by their very nature are not meant to change. They stay the same from the time they come from the factory to the time they reach your home until the time that they are maybe, given away to the time that that person uses it, all the way till the death of the product. And let's look at the outside of a box from Apple, on the outside of a box from Google, on the outside of a box from almost any tech company. Somewhere you can find that little serial number. So someone could, in theory, go to a store, find these serial numbers, get them, figure out how to do this, get that VLC stream, and then be able to access it. Or, and I think this was in a more reasonable way that this could be used in the wild, a bad actor donates a bunch of these cameras, or sells for very little money a bunch of these cameras to a store like Goodwill or something like that. People buy them, they take them home, and the person has almost everything that they need to be able to get the URL that's the VLC stream, the stream that they would put it into VLC. What this all shows is that on top of the fact that there is a way to access an unencrypted stream, is that maybe Eufy's security practices are not as good as they have claimed. Because even if they weren't able to access the stream via the URL, the fact that they're using a serial code or the serial number as the way to create this code shows kind of poor thinking in the first place. A token that is supposed to be generated that then Eufy's servers are supposed to check against wasn't even validated at all. They were able to change that token to the words arbitrary potato, and it still worked. And then a 4 to 6 digit random hexadecimal that could also be brute forced. On top of that, if you can believe, there are some claims, again from Paul Moore, that the encryption key that Eufy is using for the parts of the video stream that are encrypted is, and this is again what this researcher claims, is that the encryption key is just a plain text string, capital Z, capital X, security 17 cam at. And that security code, that plaintext string, has been published online in the past. And so it's a whole lot of yikes. It's a whole lot of yikes.
No kidding.
Because you want to be able to trust a company's assertions that it is doing what it's supposed to do. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. How does an average person know which devices to buy or not buy, and which ones are secure or are not secure? Because, The Verge has reviewed these products in the past and has recommended them. That's one. But I mean, loads of different tech companies. I'm just using The Verge as an example because they've written about this most recent issue. And so you hear from all these different tech people, oh yeah, these are great, they say that they'll do this, But you almost there needs to be a security researcher out there who's just going through all of these and saying, no, don't use this one, don't use this one. And of course, what it boils down to is just never install any of this in the first place, and then you don't have to worry about it. But that's not that's not the world we live in. You know what I mean? Like that is an easy answer to give, but it's not the answer that people are going to follow on the whole. And it is disappointing at the very least, concerning for sure, that all of this is true in the background. And it makes me, side-eye this camera that I've had checking my home with some regularity whenever I'm outside of it. Because if someone figured out the right string of characters, they could gain access to that camera. And this is one of those pan cameras too. It's got like the AI, so now I'm like, oh man.
So you can tilt it and everything?
Yeah. So every time that it followed me as I was, leaving the room or whatever, was somebody actually the one controlling that, or was it the AI the whole time? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's unsettling.
That is unsettling. I mean, and as a user of any of these types of devices, I don't have an Anker camera, but once you know that something like this has happened, it's, that trust level drops. And I guess then, it's kind of like, do you fall in the camp of like, wait and see, or do you fall in the camp of like, I can't even trust this anymore? I've got to move on. But yeah, and then moving on actually carries a cost, because dang it, I have these devices through my house, and now suddenly, I need to get rid of them. And I mean, it really kind of reminds me a little bit of the LastPass story as well. It's kind of like, what is the point at which the line is drawn for the user to say like, all right, my data might not have been compromised here, but I've heard enough to want to move away. And then you're faced with the reality of moving away, which is not convenient in any sense. It's incredibly inconvenient and costly, which shouldn't be the reason why someone allows their security to be exposed going forward. Like, I've decided to just let people hack my camera because it's just too much of a pain in the butt to replace them. Like, you probably shouldn't do that, but still there's that resistance, which means everybody has a different line that they draw in the sand as far as too far. What is that too far line?
Yeah. There's no answer, unfortunately. No. And I guess it's just keep your eyes out, stay posted, keep posted. And I mean, the fact that they as The Verge puts it in their headline, lied about this stuff. Yeah. And they continue to deny it. And that's,
then it's like, okay, well, if that's the case now, then what about other things that we don't know about? What about the future? I mean, as a company, as a security products developer, creator, whatever, like you're only as good as the trust that people have in you. And if you're caught in a lie as far as what you say you're doing or not doing or whatever, I mean, you're going to lose people immediately as far as that's concerned. And just how far down does that go? I mean, how do you trust a company that I mean, I can understand if a company has some sort of, something happens and they weren't aware. Maybe they should have been aware, so you can hold them to task for that. But it really caught them flat-footed, and they immediately address it. And then it's like, okay, well, no company is perfect, but at least when you knew about it, you let us know what you know, and we move forward with integrity. But if you're lying about it and then you're caught in the lie, that really just changes everything.
I want to read a quick response from Eufy. Mac Rumors has posted an article with a response, and this is what Eufy had to say. Eufy Security is designed as a local home security system. All video footage is stored locally and encrypted on the user's device. With regard to Eufy Security's facial recognition technology, this is all processed and stored locally on the user's device. Our product services and processes are in full compliance with General Data Protection Regulation, that's GDPR standards, including and then a bunch of numbers. To provide users with push notifications to their mobile devices, some of our security solutions create small preview images, thumbnails of videos that are briefly and securely hosted on an AWS-based cloud server. These thumbnails utilize server-side encryption and are set to automatically delete and are in compliance with Apple Push Notification Service and Firebase Cloud Messaging standards. Users can only access or share these thumbnails after securely logging into their Eufy security account. Although our Eufy security app allows users to choose between text-based or thumbnail-based push notifications, it was not made clear that choosing thumbnail-based notifications would require preview images to be briefly hosted in the cloud. That lack of communication was an oversight on our part, and we sincerely apologize for our error. They're planning on revising that push notification language and then showing kind of how that makes a difference, but they don't address the issue about watching Eufy streams via VLC. So that is still up in the air. The second part of that, I think, makes sense. It's just they chose the thing that was less concerning.
Yeah, right.
That was
Again.
That was another claim that the security researcher made, was that it was briefly connecting to a web server to send thumbnails. And so he was going like, why is that? But that's not the bigger issue here.
That's not the bigger issue. Yeah,
it's
that's
the unencrypted video stream.
Yeah, it's not good.
All right. I think that's all.
As if people won't notice, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Anyways, that's kind of weak. Weak sauce.
Weak sauce, man.
Anywho, okay. Well, we've reached the end of this security-filled episode of Tech News Weekly. Apparently, there's just a lot of security things you need to know about right now. So that's how it goes. TNW, we record this show every Thursday. So just go to twit.tv/TNW. Doesn't matter what day you go to that site. That's just where you can find all the ways to subscribe to our audio feed, our video feed. All of our past episodes are there as well. So yeah, check it out. twit.tv/TNW.
Something else you should check out is Club TWiT, because that is how you support us directly. Support your favorite shows directly. twit.tv/Club TWiT is where you go. Club TWiT starts at $7 a month or $84 a year. And though that pay will give you access to every single Twitch show with no ads, because instead of the sponsors supporting the content, you are directly supporting the content. So you get an ad-free experience. You also get access to the Club TWiT Plus bonus feed. That's a TWiT Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, etc., etc., etc. Lots of great stuff there, as well as access to the members-only Discord server. That is the place where you can go to chat with your fellow Club TWiT members and also those of us here at TWiT. It is constantly active, constantly popping off, as it were, and a great place to hang out and make some new friends. See who else is supporting the shows directly. We do appreciate that at twit.tv/Club TWiT. Again, starting at $7 a month, up to $84 a year. And that's because we heard that some folks were saying, hey, look, I'd like to be able to give you some more than just $7 a month. And we said, you know what? That's so nice. Okay. I think we'll make it possible because we haven't stopped at just those options. You also get access to some great shows that are Club TWiT exclusive. There's the Untitled Linux show that, as you might imagine, is all about Linux. There is Paul Thurrott's show, Hands on Windows, a short format show where he talks about Windows tips and tricks. And my show, Hands on Mac, which is also a short format show where I talk about all things Apple, loads of devices, and you know, the apps and services and what you need to know about everything. The one that'll be coming out later today, I'm excited about. It is all about Apple Music Replay. So if you use Apple Music and you've seen your Spotify friends sharing their year in review and you're going, I wish I could, you can. Apple Music has a replay feature. It's just kind of hard to access. So I walk through that process of doing so. And then you get to see my embarrassing music taste because I've been doing a lot of audiobook listening this year, not a lot of music listening. So everything's skewed. Everything's very skewed towards one specific thing, but I will leave that to those of you who subscribe. Now is my time to tell you that you can follow me online at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Again, check me out later today on Hands on Mac, Saturdays for the Tech Guy radio show, although in the new year, it will be Sundays and it'll be Ask the Tech Guys, and on Tuesdays for iOS Today, which I co-host with my pal and the very brilliant Rosemary Orchard. Jason Howell, what about you?
Dang, you're busy. You've got quite the calendar. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter, Mastodon, twit.social/@Jason Howell. If you want to find me over there, I'm really enjoying Mastodon, I gotta say. It's really nice. Big thanks to John Ashley. Big thanks to Burke McQuinn at the studio for helping out behind the scenes, making this show happen. From a technical sense behind the scenes. And thanks to you for making this show happen from a listening and watching us sense. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next Thursday on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Hey, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, and I have a question for you. How do you think your hardworking team with a Club TWiT corporate subscription plan, of course. Show your appreciation and reward your tech team with a subscription to Club TWiT. Keep everyone informed and entertained with podcasts covering the latest in tech. With a Club TWiT subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. And they also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes and behind-the-scenes footage and special content like the fireside chats that I enjoy hosting. Plus, they also get shows like Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. So, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and look for corporate plans for complete details.